You see, I assumed if you're 47 years old and you're smart and you're successful, there's no way in hell you have ADD, right? Actually, yes, you can be smart and successful and still struggle with ADD just like I do. As many of you know, I struggle with ADD and anxiety and mild dyslexia. I've got a whole casserole of neurological stuff going on over here. But I've been recently getting a ton of questions about ADD, and so I wanted to address them. Stephanie, for example, wrote, Mel, I've heard in a couple of your videos that you have ADD. When did you become aware of it? What are the positive effects? In what ways has it held you back? And what are strategies that you use to cope with it? Stephanie, thank you for asking. So when did I become aware that I had ADD? Believe it or not, I'm 49 years old. I only became aware of it 2 years ago. When I was 47 years old, I was diagnosed with ADD. And here's a funny story. I remember right after I was diagnosed, my 10-year-old son, he had a pediatrician appointment, and ironically, we were going through all this testing for ADHD for him. And when the test came back positive that Oakley has ADHD, I kind of smiled and said to our pediatrician, well, I know who he gets it from, Mark. I was just diagnosed with ADD. And he looked at me and said, Mel, you were just diagnosed? What do you mean? I said, yeah, I just found out like a month ago. He looked at me dead in the eye, you guys, and he said, I've known you for 16 years. You are textbook for having ADD. And I looked back at him and I'm like, Mark, why the hell didn't you tell me? And he said, because I'm not your doctor. And I assumed you were already being treated. When I was diagnosed, it was a bit of a surprise because I don't know about you, but when I heard the term ADD, what came to mind for me was a 8-year-old little boy who can't sit still in his chair in school. I didn't really know that ADD is something that affects girls and also affects women. Now, when I dug into the research on ADD, you might be surprised to learn that ADD, ADHD, it affects men and women in equal numbers. There's a whole group of psychiatrists and psychologists who have been studying ADD, and they have discovered that there is a lost generation of women just like me. So if you happen to be a woman and you feel disorganized or forgetful or easily distracted or scattered, guess what? You might actually have ADD, and you should probably go talk to your doctor about it. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I can't diagnose you. I can just share with you what my experience is. You see, I assumed if you're 47 years old and you're smart and you're successful, there's no way in hell you have ADD, right? Actually, yes, you can be smart and successful and still struggle with ADD just like I do. For a very long time, the American Psychiatric Association defined the standards for ADD based on how it manifested in little boys. And when girls have ADD and ADHD, it looks really different. They're not bouncing around in their chair, they're daydreaming. They're having a hard time following instructions, and they're really disorganized. And what happens is a lot of girls go undiagnosed, and then that spirals into anxiety and depression. Why? Well, because if you have ADD and you're not successful with treating it, or you don't have strategies to cope with it, you tend to start to beat yourself up. You tend to start to make yourself wrong for being so disorganized. You tend to start to feel a little hopeless over your ability to get things done. And that spirals, and that's exactly what happened for me. You see, I was diagnosed with anxiety when I was 21 years old. Boom, right there in that lost generation of women. We missed the diagnosis of ADD in me. Instead, it turned into anxiety and depression, and that became the primary thing that I struggled with. Now, meanwhile, the ADD was underneath there untreated the entire time. When I got diagnosed at the age of 47 with ADD, it was so surprising and so empowering because I finally had a way to explain something about the way that my mind works that made a hell of a lot of sense. I also found the compassion that I needed for myself so that I could stop beating myself up and actually just accept the fact that I have a neurological condition that makes me disorganized, forgetful, easily distracted, and sometimes scattered. Now, what are the positive effects? Well, I have a lot more humanity for myself, and I laugh at myself when I walk in the kitchen and see that the faucet is still running because I forgot to turn it off. instead of making myself wrong. What ways has it held me back? I think it's the source of my anxiety that I suffered with for a very long time. There are plenty of projects that I was never able to finish in college or law school or in jobs. What are the strategies that I use to cope with it? Well, number one, you got to go see a professional. So having a doctor to talk to about ADD has been extraordinarily helpful in understanding the way that my mind works and the strategies that I should be using in order to set myself up for success. Get yourself educated after you talk to a professional. So I love Ned Hollowell's book, Driven to Distraction. I love John Rady's book about Spark and the connection between exercise and ADD and depression and anxiety. So get yourself educated. I take Adderall, not every day, not all the time. I will, for example, take it if I'm on an airplane and I'm gonna fly across country and I have 4 hours in a seat and I wanna focus and get a lot of work done, I'll take it in that instance. If I have a deadline and I'm finding that it's hard for me to focus, I might take it then. But that has worked really well for me. I know a lot of people abuse it. I don't happen to be one of those people that abuse it, but it has been a real lifesaver. The other thing that has helped me a lot with ADD is exercise. So I noticed that right after I exercise, I typically have a 2 to 3 hour window where I'm much more focused than I normally am. And finally, I notice a big connection between my gut and my ADD. So I am an extremely healthy eater because when I tend to carbo load or eat and mainline ice cream or drink a ton of booze, what ends up happening is I get more distracted, less focused, and it has a negative impact on the ADD condition that I struggle with. I hope that helps. I hope if you're somebody who's saying, holy cow, I'm disorganized, I'm easily distracted, I beat myself up all the time. I hope that this inspires you to go talk to your doctor to see if this is something that's impacting you. Because the fact of the matter is, you can be smart, you can be successful, and you can still struggle with ADD. And the good news is, there's a lot of simple things that you can do to alleviate the suffering and actually improve your focus and your ability to get things done.